And welcome back to the Jewish-Anglican. How you doing? And this is the first episode of Anglosphere News. Kind of, not really, since we already did a video about Anglosphere politics. But this is close enough, you know. So, here's what's on the agenda for March. Recently, Restore Britain, which is the further right position than Reform UK, and we will touch on the difference between the two. Restore Britain, founded by Rupert Lowe, has officially become a political party as confirmed by the Electoral Commission, meaning they will actually be on the ballot. This is a huge win for the British right. God bless. This is a huge win for the British right. So that's the UK. Let's look at what Canada's doing. Oh boy, Pierre Poilievre. For some reason, my YouTube has just been flooded with Pierre Poilievre posts. My YouTube, my Instagram, I don't know why. It is the weirdest thing. But it's happening. So, what is Pierre Poilievre doing and who is he? Pierre Poilievre was the conservative leader of the Canadian Party and still is, although he did lose his seat once. Pierre Poilievre has recently announced he believes that there needs to be a Canzuk alliance or union between Britain, Australia, New Zealand, and Canada, which is a huge win for the Anglosphere, especially if Pierre Poilievre's Conservative Party is able to win the next general Canadian election. The next general Canadian election is somewhere in 2029, around October. Basically, Pierre Poilievre's Canzuk proposal is that free trade amongst Canzuk, automatic recognition of professional credentials across all nations, and a security between all four. And then, he's also went on Joe Rogan recently to talk about Canadian politics, and Bruce Lee, apparently. What's even more fascinating is that Pierre Poilievre talked to the governor of Texas, of all places, and discussed how Canada and America truly flourish when we have each other's backs. Pierre Poilievre, of all people, is strangely doing the most pro-Anglosphere out of any politician currently. At least kind of. Not a full union, but is definitely pushing a free trade agreement between all Anglosphere countries. A more focused on the Canzuk part with America as a secondary partner, which I do think is beneficial for the Anglosphere as a whole. And recently there's also been grumblings within DC because, well, DC is of course grumbling about a lot of things, but there's been some rumors again of wanting to push for statehood due to, taxation without representation. Now, personally, I don't want DC to become a state because DC was never meant to be a state. But on the other hand, they're also not getting their tax. They are also getting taxed without representation. Sure, they have a delegate who can make legislation and have a say in committees, but in terms of actually voting for a bill, he has nothing to say. He has no voting rights in Congress. So, I do see the point of DC becoming a state for a lot of reasons. But on the other hand, DC was never meant to be a state. So my proposal for people of DC is we give DC, like the living parts of DC, the actual city parts, we give that to, Maryland and give the capital part as DC, if that makes sense. That's just my proposal. With Restore Britain coming up and up in polls, and has even recently passed the Conservative Party membership. Now, of course, this has led to some people, mostly in America and other English-speaking countries, to ask, what is the difference between Restore Britain and Reform UK? This is great. Reform UK is older and is skyrocketing through the polls, but it is plummeting because Restore Britain has a lot of better points to be made. Reform UK is led by Nigel Farage, and he does not think that mass migration is feasible, while Restore Britain's Rupert Lowe does think it is possible. In fact, there was a study that showed a lot of Reform UK voters, their ideals and ideology line up closer with Restore Britain than Reform UK. Restore Britain is also a lot more into banning burqas in public places and reinstituting home defense and jury by trial. They're a lot more vocal in their British nationalism than Reform UK is. There's no real comparison to American politics in this one. UK is doing a very unique UK thing, really. You see, Reform UK, led by Nigel Farage, is a lot more secular. Sure, it is more open to Christianity, But Restore Britain is a lot more pro-Christian and more explicitly Christian in stance. They're also far more for direct democracy, which I myself have some hang-ups about.
There is one sad part about Anglosphere news, and that is the House of Lords. Recently, the House of Lords have abolished the hereditary peers, meaning that there will no longer be any nobility within the House of Lords, very much erasing the nobility and monarchist side of Britain. But it gets worse. Recently, there was a vote to amend part of their policing and safety bill, where part of the bill was trying to decriminalize abortion after the 24-week period. Because in Britain, it's like they used to have 24 weeks of period to murder your child, and then if you do it afterwards, you could very much well be arrested. That's how it went. And then recently, they amended that where they tried to decriminalize that, where they tried to decriminalize killing your child. And strangely enough, the Archbishop of Canterbury, who I've had criticisms of, Archbishop of Canterbury, Mullany, while I have criticisms of her, I am glad she voted against the decriminalization. It did not work, but she tried. And, I do respect that even though she is very much pro-choice, she does see that there is a limit between a baby being killed an hour before birth, killed whenever in the womb. I don't, it's still bad either way, but I'm glad at least the Archbishop of Canterbury understands that you can't be pro-choice in general. I'm at least saying that. Abortion's still bad, don't get me wrong. I'm just saying at least the Archbishop tried to prevent this from being worse. And unfortunately, she failed. Unfortunately, the House of Lords, which is barely even any nobility now, has allowed the decriminalization of aborting your baby past a 24-week period. New Zealand has a right to life, and they still have abortion. It's a lot more regulated, but they at least have the right to life. In Britain, a woman an hour before birth can abort her baby now. Literal child murder is happening in Britain. Britain, the pinnacle of Britain was at one point the pinnacle of human rights and civilization, and now it is this thing where they're killing children. Here's a good alternative to abortion. Just don't have sex. And I think this is why I'm actually a big supporter. I have criticisms of Restore Britain. I really do. I really have a lot of criticisms of Restore Britain, mostly because they're treating halal and kosher as the same thing in their policies, which is not. The idea of killing an animal and praying towards Mecca is very pagan, versus the kosher, I'm going to kill this animal very efficiently and drain the blood of it so it doesn't, spill everywhere. That's very different from the halal stuff. But at least Restore Britain is pro-life. Yeah, Restore Britain is actually against abortion and wants to abolish abortion. Meanwhile, Reform UK is a little weird because they think 24 weeks is too long, but they're also not fully against it. There's members in Reform UK who are fully against it, but it's not unanimous. Meanwhile, in Restore Britain, they actually want to abolish abortion because, abortion is awful. I know I'm getting worked up, but this is Britain. This is the homeland of freedom of speech and right to bear arms and trial by jury. They are literally killing their people. They are killing the next generation of Britons. This is evil. This is genocide, what is happening in Britain. And I'm glad Restore Britain exists, because Restore Britain, led by Rupert Lowe, is going to make Britain better. It's going to make Britain great again. And I pray that Restore Britain wins the next general election. Because if they don't, Britain could be dead. We live in a very dangerous time in terms of cultural heritage. There's people on the left who want to say there is no such thing as American heritage, British heritage, European heritage, which is all lies. There's people on the right who even say, America it doesn't really have one unique culture other than, freedom. But America is predominantly, at least historically, has been, at least in Anglo, America has been a predominantly British heritage culture. So we are seeing the Brits now are trying to eradicate their own people with this new law where abortion's pretty much legal up till before birth. I don't know how many British people are going to be watching this, but please, for the love of God, if you're a Christian, heck, even if you're like an agnostic or atheist who might have a little bit of a liberal streak but still think abortion's wrong, vote Restore Britain. The British people in Britain, are going to have Restore Britain is the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland's last hope. Pray for Britain. Pray for Restore Britain's success. Pray for the return of Jesus Christ as their Lord and Savior. Hi, Jewish-Anglican here, editing Jewish-Anglican, and I don't know why, but I've been having a really hard time just ending the video, and I've been doing all these different takes, and I'm not sure why it's a struggle. I think it is, for me personally, just really depressing. The fact that abortion is allowed throughout so many different nations of the world. And I don't know how to articulate it. I really don't know how to articulate how I feel. And all I know is that we must pray and speak the truth. I think it's as simple as that, and I don't think there's better words than that. Just pray and speak the truth about the evils of abortion. And if you have a woman in your life, let it be a friend, coworker, or relative who is considering abortion, please reach out to them and try to talk to them. I think that's all I need to say. God bless and enjoy the rest of your day.
Tir bryth o'n hig, hai o